Hello guys, Randall with Bitraged. So I want to do a video here, an update for Bitcoin. We're looking at the Bitcoin chart for GDAX, and I want to go over a couple of things where we're at, kind of what's going on, and what we're noticing. I've been seeing a lot of videos lately. People are talking about different scenarios. They're mentioning different things that could play out, but not necessarily have to. And I hear people say things like, this has to happen, the short squeeze has to happen, or we're oversold so we have to go up. While those things do have a precedence in history where being oversold tends to produce a bounce, and we've seen short squeezes, it doesn't mean it has to happen. So anytime you hear people say that, they probably really don't understand how to really trade, because a real trader knows that nothing has to happen in the market. That's why we look for simple confirmations. We look at the structure, we look for patterns, and we find confirmation of a breakout. And that's how we trade. And when you trade that way, you tend to be far more successful and have less losses. So here's the Bitcoin chart. It's very simple. It's just tuned down. I do usually add the volume indicator, but it's not on there now. You can add that. It is useful information. But when we look at the chart, before we make any decisions to trade, we should look at the chart bare bones. If you want to add indicators, add them after you've already made a decision on where to trade as confirmation. But you should not be making trading decisions based on RSI or MACD or any other indicator, because it is simply a visual representation of historical price action. So it's not a prediction of the future. It may play out that way, but that is not how it should be used. It is useful information at times. So let's jump in, look at the chart. I'm going to start drawing some trend lines and look at our channel here. All right, so this is our downward moving channel, and this is a 4-hour. Gives us a closer view, but it's not too close up, so we can get a bigger picture still. So within this channel, we actually have several patterns that have played out. But the one we're looking at here is one of the more recent ones, which was a upward moving channel, and it could almost be considered a broadening wedge, but it really didn't play out that well. The important point is that either way, it is a pattern for a sell-off. We hit the trend line, and that's exactly what happens. It sells off. So that was a great area if you were watching this to get ready to sell. Now, you shouldn't sell here. You could, but it's not. It does incur more risk because you could have broken through. Selling out of the break would have been a great point to sell or short the market. So let's look at the 1 hour here. As we've seen this impulse down, we've seen corrections, and these are bear flags. Now, Bitcoin really doesn't produce, or hasn't been producing, pretty bear flags. Generally, you will see a corrective move up from an impulse, forming a nice bear flag, and it continues down. Bitcoin hasn't always done that, but nonetheless, these are bear flags, and they're playing out like bear flags. I know one person mentioned that this is too big to be a bear flag because of the flagpole. Bitcoin doesn't always respect that, and you have to understand that it didn't exactly play out as a huge impulse down. So you could invalidate that, but nonetheless, you still can use that as a point to sell the breakout. So people get hung up on perfectionism, like, well, it doesn't fit, so we throw it out. You should still be keeping an eye on it. So this one played out better as a bear flag. We corrected up. It's not a fully formed one, but it is more of a corrective move up. Where we are right now is a really nice corrective move up, which is what we've needed, because if you go to the daily, there's been a lot of people talking about, I got two of those on there, the RSI being in oversold. We're actually bouncing from that right now, but there is a misunderstanding with the RSI, and I'd like to clear that up a little bit. People look at this and they usually use a 14-day, and they say, well, we're in oversold, so that means that we have to bounce. If you look back here at our insane move up to 20,000, we went deeply into overbought multiple times for our move up to 17,000 here, the first time, we went into overbought 94. As the market tried to correct, every time it tried to correct, there was massive manipulation in the market, which prevented it. Days like this, there's nothing natural about that day. It was pure manipulation. And every move down, when we hit February 6th, we tried to correct. We should have went lower, but we didn't because it was prevented by mass manipulation by Bitfinex and other exchanges, I believe. Finally, we're actually approaching a time, we are in a time where, because of the CFTC cracking down, that manipulation has largely stopped. And we're actually starting to see things progress more naturally. That's why we're seeing these moves down. And it's impulsing down, it's correcting, it's impulsing down, it's correcting. It's starting to play out really nice, and it's making it a lot easier for us to determine where Bitcoin is headed, or at the very least, to look at where it could break through, break down, or turn around. It's also important to note that if you're using RSI, the default would be 14 days. 14 days history does not give you an accurate representation of what has happened over the past 6 months. It just accounts for the last 14 days. So being oversold for the last 14 days really doesn't give you an accurate picture of where we're at. Now, that being said, it does create a place where most likely we will see a bounce or a move up or a correction further up. That does seem logical in the situation. But to say it has to happen, I get sick of people like that. They think they know everything. It has to happen. They're clowns, you know. And then these people on Twitter and other places are like, well, you'll never see Bitcoin below 7,000 again. They're clowns. They don't know anything. They either are trying to make fame by making a prediction they hope comes true. But regardless, no real trader, you don't hear that in Forex. And if you do, they're not successful traders. Because successful traders really don't care where the price goes, as long as there's money to be made somewhere along the way. So let's break this down a little bit further to look at what could potentially happen. This is a corrective move up. It's usually considered a bear flag. It doesn't have a pole, so we'll just call it a corrective move up. Now, that being said, we also could look at this area right here as a potential downtrend channel, which a downtrend channel tends to break upward. But in the immediate future for this hourly, as we're looking at the hourly, we should expect this to potentially break bearish. So there's a very good chance of it testing our 58, 59, or at least 6,000 area down here before heading back up. But it's also possible, because we are in oversold and a lot of people do look at that, that we will break out of this area at some point and correct further up. We could also continue our continuation, just moving slowly upwards and then eventually break down. So we just have to watch this play out to see what will happen there. But I want to make it clear, because sometimes people comment and say, so basically it could go up and down. And people, they miss the point. When you draw these things out, it makes it very clear where it will go as you look for confirmation. So, yeah, the potential is to break out either way. There is that potential. It could happen. But how you figure out which way it will happen is you wait for confirmation of a breakout. So if this breaks bearish, if we get a bearish candle that drops below this, first of all, you check for momentum. If it's building momentum, then most likely it's going to continue for at least a short time and test this area, or at least get close to it before beginning to correct. If it breaks out bullish, again, look for the momentum and you look for a confirmation that it is definitely a breakout. And when you see that happen, then you can begin to place your buys or your sells depending on which way it breaks out. So that's how you should be trading. It is possible that we will either correct or break out and retest this area, 72, 7300 area, 7100, depends on how long it takes us. And most likely, if we do that, we will continue down. So we will either continue down to retest our bottom area again between 5,800 and 6,300, or we will possibly break through it at that point. That is where we're at. Those are the possibilities. To be bullish at this point is reckless because there is no evidence or reason to be bullish. But there's also no reason to be unnecessarily bearish. The potential is that we could go much lower. The potential is between 1,800 and 4,000. I'm looking at between 3,200 and 3,500 as being the bottom. But it's hard to say. Nobody can really say at this point. We have to just watch as this continues to break down or move up and just see as the patterns form. Because we're going to start to see that there will be a structure that will form, a new structure, and out of that, we will know where we're headed long term. So if we break out of this bearish, target would be 6,000. If we break out of this bullish, the target would be most likely between 6,800 and 71. I would say 68 because that is a point that I'm not sure that we could break at this point. So I think that'll about do it. Just wait for the breakout, wait for confirmation of the breakout either way. And it does look like we're forming another hourly bullish flag, so it looks like a potential to move up to the upside of this again. But as we've seen here, we could just kind of consolidate along. So follow it out, adjust your trend lines, adjust your area here as it pans out to see where we are headed, and then just buy or sell the breakout. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Thanks for sharing our videos on social media. And if you enjoyed the video, please go ahead and give it a like. And if you're not subscribed already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Thanks, guys, and take care.